Yeah, it's an exciting week for us. Texas Tech on Wednesday, be a heck of a challenge. It's always a war against those guys. Um, Coach Beard and staff do a terrific job. They have a really connected group. Just watching them over their past few games, they seem to have really just gotten closer and closer over the course of the season. For us, most important thing is improvement and growth over this time. That's as a team and also individually. We got back really late from Morgantown. Yesterday was an important day for our guys to get some recovery. And then, there's never been a more important practice than today.
Kirk Bowles, go ahead and lead us off, please.
Kirk, you're on mute.
As I was saying, sorry about that. Texas Tech's offense seemed to have really picked up, especially the last couple of games, and obviously the Iowa State game. What do you see from their offense, and might you try more zone than you guys are wanting to do?
I was looking at that today. They have a really unique team from the standpoint of personnel and different lineups that they can put in the game. I think they're pretty good against zone. So it's definitely something to look at. It's not something that we do a lot, but offensively, I think the biggest thing that they're doing really, really well is sharing the basketball with each other, creating for each other. I think having McCullough back, he was injured earlier in the season. I think he just makes them better on both ends of the floor. He's such a connector out there on the court. And then their guards, are doing a great job playmaking. They're pretty much all perimeter players other than Santos Silva. The rest of them are guards. They've got some guards that have great size, like Terrence Shannon, Micah Peavy. But I think McClung and Edwards, those guys, are among the best guards in the league.
I'm going to limit to one question per media to get as many through today. Nick Moyle, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Shaka, it seems like y'all maybe have, the most unique team in the country, especially among Power 5 teams, just in terms of you haven't had that constant turnover that kind of plagues the other teams. And it just seems like when these guys play together, they play for each other. There's affection. It seems like there's a genuine brotherhood. I mean, have you had a team that's had this kind of connectivity and bond with one another?
At times. I mean, it's more about how consistent you can be with that. I think it certainly helps that guys have spent time together, that they've been through ups and downs together. But I mean, I think every team that we've had here or other places have at times been that way, but that's not good enough. I mean, it's about consistency over time. It's about growth. It's about over the course of the season, challenges and adversity bringing you closer together.
Brian Davis, go ahead, please.
Shaka, as you're looking at this start and as exciting as it can be to get wrapped up in a perfect start in league play, what in your mind is like, no, guys, we need to work on this or this going forward?
There's a lot of those, Brian, for sure. We don't really get caught up in the start because it's all about the next game. And, we talk a lot about the term or the phrase, regardless of circumstances. So, regardless of how you started or how your last game went, which, by the way, we would have lost if Courtney doesn't make a great pass and Andrew doesn't make that shot. So, that certainly could have gone the other way. But we need to get better at guarding the basketball. Me, I'm always a little more biased on defense, like just not good enough the last two games guarding the basketball. And Texas Tech's a team that'll make you pay if you don't do a better job there. We need to do a better job getting a hand in the basketball. We need to do a better job helping each other. You know, and I told the guys last week at some point, I can't remember what day it was, and young guys don't really like to hear this, but young people don't like to hear this, but, you know, good is the enemy of great. So, you know, we're pretty good at those things, but not great. And if we want to be what we all say we want to be, we've got to keep improving.
Myron Metcalf, go ahead, please.
Hey, Shaka, when you think about the team and kind of the number one ingredient that's led to this success so far, what has been the thing that you've emphasized that you think has really helped this team excel the way that it has thus far?
I mean, I think any team that is able to have team success, the number one ingredient has to be having a common goal and being connected around that goal in a team sport. Basketball, I've said many times before, it's fascinating because it's both an individual and a team sport. Make no mistake about it. And, you know, I think the teams at any level that have a lot of success, particularly over the course of a long season, not just, you know, a game or two or a week or two, those teams, those groups of young men have decided, hey, we want to do this together. We want to do something special that none of us would be able to do on our own.
Dustin McComas.
Shaka, offensively against Kansas, you guys did a lot of your damage beyond the arc. Against West Virginia, a lot of that was the 2-point stuff, getting to the paint, guards getting to the rim and things like that. Does that give you some confidence about just the versatility of these offense and the decision-making from the guards that, hey, if a defense is playing us this way, we got to get into the paint and make things happen. And, you know, some nights that's going to be the way that you attack, and other nights it's going to be beyond the arc.
Well, we need to get to the paint either way, Dustin. And, you know, honestly, the best 3-point shots are after you've gotten into the paint. And so it's not that there's any games where we say, hey, we're just going to bomb threes. We're not going to try to touch the paint. I think a game like the other day against West Virginia, I think we were 3 for 12 from three in the first half. They were good looks. I mean, a lot of good looks for Andrew, who made a few, for Greg, who didn't, for Matt, who didn't. I think Brock got to open one in the corner. So, you know, we want to live in the paint, as we say to our guys. Some teams are better than others at keeping you out of the paint. Texas Tech is really, really good at their whole defense is predicated on no middle, no paint. You know, we're going to come over and help keep you out of there and, you know, make you do stuff on the sides of the court. And so we just have to find ways to get in there. And then we have to remember that sometimes the best way to get in the paint is to get an offensive rebound.
Browning Stubbs, go ahead, please, sir.
Hey, Coach, on Saturday, you really praised Courtney Ramey's leadership, you know, for him to make that pass, trust his teammate to make that shot. Just what have you seen from day one when he walked in the door to now about how he's grown as a leader?
I mean, he's grown leaps and bounds as a person, first and foremost. You know, he's always been a really good basketball player. I think he's, you know, dedicated a ton of time on his game, things like shooting, ball handling, defense. But the most impressive growth with him is the personal growth. And the exciting thing is, you know, he's smack dab in the middle of it. He's still got a ton of room to continue to grow and develop as a person. You know, I've said before, don't know if I've coached a guy that's more impactful on his teammates than Courtney. And he enjoys the fact that he can really affect guys. And it's not always, you know, hugs and kisses. Sometimes it's, you know, him getting after guys. And the great thing with him is he is 100% about trying to win. You know, I talked about basketball being, you know, a mixture between a team and an individual sport. He was born to play a team sport. He's a team guy, and he has a passion for trying to help his team.
Roger Wallace, go ahead, please, sir.
Shaka, you talked last week about, excuse me, how odd the atmosphere was with no fans. I'm just wondering, in some strange way, is this kind of the purest form of finding out who the best team is? There's no momentum swings because, the crowd can't help, the crowd can't hurt, things like that.
I've heard a couple other coaches talk about that in our league. We certainly, I think all players and coaches would agree, we would love to have fans as part of it because, when you take them away, it certainly changes the dynamic and, just the passion and the energy in the building, you're missing something there. But it's outside of our control. That's been the whole emphasis to our guys this whole, crazy year has just been focus on what we can control, be ready to be flexible, adaptable, choose to be positive about things that, might not be the absolute ideal circumstances. But I'm certainly hopeful that we can have fans again soon.
Bob Ballou, go ahead, please, sir.
Shaka, just on the maturity of this team, we talk a lot about top 5 rankings and 10-1 and undefeated in league play and all that kind of stuff. But is that, as much as you guard against it and talk to them a lot about it, is that maybe one of the least concerns you have because you have such a mature team that worrying about all that outside stuff, you don't really have to worry about that with them? And Scott, don't get mad at me for asking a second question. Did you get out in the snow with your daughter yesterday?
That second question is no disrespect to the first question, but that's the most exciting one. I did. We built a snowman. So, Scott, I got to send you the picture. You share it with some of these guys. My daughter's I'm from Wisconsin, so I'm used to snow. But my daughter has never lived in a, cold climate, and she's maybe once or twice seen snow. I don't know if we've ever built a snowman. So I wanted to make sure we got that done yesterday. In terms of maturity, it certainly helps, but it's not like we can check the box and say, oh yeah, we definitely, don't have to guard against some of the things that can accompany, some of the stuff you mentioned. I think what we have to remember is anytime we've been in a certain position before, like maybe winning a couple games, losing a game, 2 games, whatever it may be, being able to, glean lessons from those experiences. And then anytime we have not been in a position before, like being ranked this high or whatever it may be, we have to have the humility to understand that, okay, maybe I should, really respect what goes into being successful the next time, as opposed to allowing, this circumstance to change my mindset.
Nathan Hahn, go ahead.
Hey, Shaka, what's impressed you the most about Kai Jones's growth from last season, and what's the next step he needs to take in order to truly impact winning?
Yeah, I mean, his best basketball so far ahead of him. He's one of those guys, kind of felt this way about Jackson when he was here. We're going to look up when he's 25, 26 years old, and he's just going to be doing some things that are just ridiculous. His ceiling is so high as a player. And, you take a game like West Virginia, some of the plays, he made a contorting layup in the first half that you just watch it. I watched it live, and then I watched it again on tape about 10 times. And that has nothing to do with coaching or, scheme. He just has the ability to move his body a little bit differently than 99% of basketball players. He's got a good work ethic that's helped him a lot. Now, remember, he didn't play anything but center until he got to Texas. And last year, at the beginning of the year, he was literally our last man. And so the first thing he had to figure out was, I've got to play harder and more aggressively to get on the court. And to his credit, he really internalized that message And he did, and by the end of the year, he was starting and playing significant minutes. On this year's team, I've said before, we feel like we have 6 starters. He's a guy that plays starter minutes and, is in there when it really, really matters. So we're excited about his growth.
Joe Cook, go ahead.
Shaka, where do you get your sideline demeanor from? I mean, I haven't watched you at VCU, and I know Coach Donovan kind of seems like a more buttoned up guy, but where do you get the, being, down on a knee, slapping the floor? Is it come from your desire? And you talk about connectivity a lot. Is it from kind of that place? Just kind of, how do you explain it?
I mean, we're all a product of our environment. So I guess from people that I've been around or watched, I work for a great coach named Keith Dambrot at Akron. He's at Duquesne now. He's probably my closest friend in coaching. And one thing that I took from him is he never sat down. He was just always active and coaching, and Keith's about 5'7", 5'8", but he was being a stance, and he was and still is very, very influential over me. And then I think from there, I think my number one strength, we all have strengths and weaknesses. My number one strength is just enthusiasm, passion for the guys and what we're trying to do. So I try to share that as much as I can with the guys. I actually think I didn't do a good enough job of that at West Virginia. I think got a little bit too caught up in officials and stuff like that. But we're all human, so I can learn from that.
Stephen Wagner, go ahead.
Hey, Shaka. First off, it's good to see you again. With the relationship that you and Matt Coleman have, it seems like, especially this year, you're almost able to live through him a little bit on the court at times. How would you characterize the relationship that you and Matt have, especially dating back to when you first started recruiting him when he was in middle school?
We're very close. It's tricky because, in his time here, sometimes some of the other players give him a hard time about being like my son or whatever. And, team dynamics are interesting. You have to be careful with that kind of stuff. He started every game he's played in here. But I think he's really earned a level of respect from his teammates. He comes to practice every day with truly a mindset of a professional. He cares about the guys around him. He puts a lot of energy and just positive juice into his teammates. Our relationship it's a good one in that I can be hard on him. And I have been hard on him. I was hard on him. We got back from West Virginia the other night, and we got back late. It was like, 2 a.m. or something. And I said, "You weren't good enough, man. You not at the standard you need to be at." And he didn't play bad, but I appreciate the fact that I can tell him the truth and demand more of him. He knows I believe in him. I have a lot of confidence when the ball's in his hands. We're lucky. We've got him, we've got Courtney, we've got Andrew. Makes you a whole lot better coach. We had there was a couple years there where we had really young guards, and one year in particular where we kind of were missing point guards, and that makes you a crappy coach. It does. And all of a sudden, you get a guy like Matt as a senior and those other 2 guys, now you feel a whole lot better, especially down the stretch.
Matthew, go ahead, please.
Hi, Shaka. I'm Matthew Bonkowski with the Daily Texan. Around this time last year, you guys were in a notably different place than you are now. I know a lot goes into it, but what do you attribute you and your team's growth to?
That's a good question, Matthew. Wow. I mean, it's such a 1 year ago seems like 10 years ago, but I think the guys have taken ownership of just trying to work towards being a better team over the course of the last 12 months. We went through an interesting season last year where, I don't really follow this stuff, but we had to be as criticized as coaches and players as almost anyone in the country. And there's certainly some lessons that you can take from that as human beings, but then also as coaches and players. I don't think our guys have forgotten that. I certainly haven't forgotten that. And that's something that we use. And, here we are. It's January. Like I always say, we're just grateful to be able to play the game. 5 minutes before we go out there against West Virginia, it's like, all right, we get to play. Let's do this. That's part of it as well. But at the same time, we've got a lot of room for growth, and we've got some really challenging games coming up starting on Wednesday.
Have time for two last follow-ups. Kirk, go ahead, and then Dustin. Go ahead, Kirk.
Yeah, Shaka, the NCAA Conventions meeting this week, and name, image, and likeness is going to be a big part of that. What do you see as the effects that will have on college sports?
Whew. How much time you got?
As long as you got.
It's going to be fascinating, for sure. I think that one of the effects is going to be obviously an added component to everyone's daily lives that focuses around, branding, marketing, the way that players are perceived on social media and in general by the public. By the way, I'm not saying any of this is bad or good. I think it just is. I think that one of the things that's going to be fascinating, Kirk, is just, again, when you're coaching a team sport or playing a team sport, most of this stuff is going to be individual in nature. How does that impact team connectivity? How does it impact the way guys feel about their teammates? Mental health is something that already is a major issue to focus on and be aware of. I do think that could really be impacted by this stuff. Again, I'm not saying it's good, bad, or whatever. It just is. I think, Kirk, to be honest, if you ask me, like, well, what's going to be the biggest challenge or quote unquote problem, to me, and I think the NCAA has got to figure this out. It's not an easy one, but we've been told that if it does pass, the schools and the coaches need to be aware of what's going on with name, image, and likeness with their student athletes, but not be involved in it. And to me, that's a very naive way to look at it. Obviously, there's major recruiting implications. But I think for the people that do try to go by what the NCAA tells us to do, it's almost like, kind of puts you behind the eight ball a little bit, because there certainly are going to be folks that say, no, if you come to our school, you're going to be able to get X, Y, and Z and be associated with this business and that. So, we are at the University of Texas. I think there's some real positives that can come from, being a student athlete here and what that means. And, you think of a guy like Sam Ehlinger and just the reach that you might have, or even a Mo Bamba in just his short time here. So there's certainly some positives of being here with that coming into effect. But, man, I just hope that there's not some student athlete out there that, because he or she is not, garnering the same whatever that someone else is, that they don't do something crazy or, impact them in a negative way. I think that's something we're really going to have to guard against and be proactive with.
Dustin, last one to you, sir.
Shaka, not to be a Debbie Downer with this last one, but there's a report out that the Baylor-West Virginia game is going to be canceled because of West Virginia COVID protocols. When that sort of thing happens, do you guys have conversation with that program because you just played them? Is it kind of up to your medical people? I mean, do you change anything? Like how does that work? I mean, considering that you guys were just up there.
That's the scary thing about all this, Dustin, is, every game, the day before the game or the day of the game, we get a text. And hopefully that text says everyone was clear, everyone was negative on their test, we're good to go. And we've gotten a couple texts that didn't say that. And those are games earlier this season that were canceled. But just because you get that text, and just because, like I said, 5 minutes before the game, you feel, okay, we get to go do this, we get to go play, that doesn't guarantee that, everything is 100% safe. And that's the complexity of this whole time period and the existential question of should we be doing, a lot of the things that we're doing, which I'm not weighing in on that. I'm just saying it's complicated. And so to answer your question, when something like that happens, the medical people communicate with each other. The first thing they do is they look at close contacts, the way that's defined, and they look and see what close contacts occurred. Everyone in the Big 12 is using this technology, Connexon, which I'm sure you've heard of, that kind of tracks how many minutes and seconds you're within 6 feet of the other person. So everyone in their group, everyone in our group had those Connexon devices on. So that kind of gives you some feedback on how much time people were in close contact.